The phone screen glowed in the darkness. 1 missed call from Lee Dae-ho. 3 missed calls from Lee Dae-ho. 15 missed calls. Ivy stared at it with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, Seoul's skyline bleeding gold through the window of a hotel room she'd checked into under a fake name. Her shoulder was bandaged where the bullet had grazed it 6 hours ago. Her clothes still smelled like gunpowder and expensive cologne, and the particular terror of almost dying. But that wasn't why her hands were shaking. She was shaking because 3 months ago, she couldn't have run. 3 months ago, she would have taken the pill her husband gave her, smiled through the pain, and let herself disappear back into the fog. 3 months ago, she was a ghost. Now she was a woman with a choice, and choosing meant war. The phone buzzed again, this time a text. Please, just tell me you're alive. Ivy typed back with trembling fingers. I'm alive. But everything just changed, because it had. In the span of 1 bullet, 1 missed shot, 1 moment of crystal clarity while bleeding on Cheongdam-dong pavement, Ivy Carter Lee had realized something crucial. She wasn't running from her old life anymore. She was hunting it. Before we continue, can I ask you a question? Where in the world are you watching from? Comment below because we'd love to know how far these stories travel. Welcome to Afro Soul Stories TV Besties. Kindly show your encouragement by hitting the like and subscribe button. It would mean a lot to me. Thank you to those who already subscribed before now. You inspired me to keep creating more videos like this. Now let's get back to the story. 3 months earlier, Ivy stood in front of floor-to-ceiling windows in a Gangnam penthouse that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime, staring at a body that felt borrowed. The woman in the glass was soft where she used to be angular, slow where she used to be quick, 35 pounds heavier than her wedding day. Her natural hair, which she'd once worn in magnificent braids that made men stop mid-sentence, was chemically straightened into limp submission. Mrs. Lee. The assistant's voice cut through her thoughts, like a blade wrapped in silk. Your medication. Ivy turned slowly. Everything was slow these days, like moving through honey. The young woman held out a silver tray with a single white pill and a cup of green tea, the same ritual that happened every morning at exactly 8 o'clock. Thank you, Ivy murmured, taking the pill. It sat on her tongue for a moment, bitter and familiar, before she swallowed it with tea that tasted faintly of jasmine and something else she could never quite place. Mr. Lee requests you join him for breakfast, the assistant continued. He says it's important. Ivy's stomach clenched. Breakfast with Jin Sang was never just breakfast. It was an evaluation, a performance review of her failures as a wife. She found him in the dining room, immaculate in a charcoal suit, scrolling through his phone while a spread of traditional Korean breakfast sat untouched. He didn't look up when she entered. You're wearing that? His eyes finally flicked to her, a dismissive scan that lingered on her hips, her thighs, the way the handbook didn't quite fit anymore. Ivy looked down at herself. You told me to wear traditional clothes when your mother visits. I meant something that actually fits. Jin Sang set down his phone with precise care. You know what? Never mind. Just try not to eat too much at dinner tonight. Mother's already making comments about how you've let yourself go. The familiar shame crawled up Ivy's throat. I've been trying. Not hard enough, apparently. He picked up his coffee, sipped, grimaced. Are you still taking your thyroid medication? Because you look worse, not better. Every morning, Ivy said quietly. Just like you told me to. Then maybe you need to see a different doctor. Or eat less. Probably both. He stood, straightening his tie. I have meetings all day, don't wait up. He left. Ivy stood alone in a dining room that could seat 12, surrounded by food she was too ashamed to touch, and felt the familiar fog rolling in. 20 minutes after the pill. Always 20 minutes. She made it to the couch before her limbs went heavy. Made it another 10 minutes before her thoughts started scattering like marbles on tile. And then she just drifted. Hours passing like water. The morning becoming afternoon, becoming evening without her quite knowing how. This was normal now. This was her life. If you're still watching, you're about to see how a woman goes from that, broken, drugged, invisible, to someone dangerous enough to kill. Stay with me. Hit that subscribe button because this story goes places you won't believe. The Lee family dinner was exactly as brutal as Ivy expected. Jin Sang's mother presided over the table in the Pyeongchang Dong estate like a queen holding court, making comments in rapid Korean that Ivy only half understood. But she caught enough. The word for fat, the word for lazy, the phrase that roughly translated to disappointing investment. What did she say? Ivy whispered to Jin Sang. He didn't even look at her. She asked if you're eating well. I told her too well. Laughter rippled around the table. Ivy's face burned. Maybe if you spent less time feeling sorry for yourself and more time at the gym, Jin Sang continued, voice light and cruel in that particular way he'd perfected. You know, my mother keeps asking when we're going to try for another baby. I told her we're waiting until you're healthy enough, which, at this rate... He let the sentence hang. Let everyone at the table fill in the blank. Ivy excused herself before the tears could start, mumbling something about needing air, and fled to the estate's private garden. She made it to the traditional pavilion overlooking the koi pond before she broke, great gasping sobs that she muffled against her hands because even crying felt like another failure. She didn't hear the footsteps, didn't know she wasn't alone until a voice spoke from the shadows. The pavilion's supposed to bring peace. The English was accented but perfect, the tone careful. But I've never found it works when you're crying. Ivy's head snapped up. A man stood at the edge of the garden path, tall, broad-shouldered, maybe mid-40s, with silver threading through black hair and a scar cutting through his left eyebrow. He moved with a slight limp, leaning on a cane carved from dark wood. Lee Dae-ho, Jin Sang's uncle. The family's former head who'd supposedly retired to Jeju Island after some kind of breakdown. Ivy had met him exactly once at her wedding 3 years ago, where he'd looked at her with dark, unreadable eyes and said nothing at all. I'm fine, Ivy lied, wiping her face. He didn't call her on it, just crossed to the pavilion and sat on the opposite bench, leaving careful space between them. Respectful distance, like she was something fragile that required gentle handling. They sat in silence for a long moment, listening to water move through the garden and the distant murmur of conversation from the house. You don't remember me, Dae-ho said finally. From the wedding, but I remember you. You looked... He paused, choosing words carefully. Alive, vibrant, like you took up space and made no apologies for it. Ivy's throat tightened. That was a long time ago. 3 years isn't that long. Not long enough to become someone else entirely. His eyes found hers in the darkness. Something in his tone made Ivy's skin prickle. What do you mean? I mean, you remind me of someone who also tried to make herself smaller to fit into spaces that would never make room for her. Dae-ho's voice was quiet, sad. She disappeared. I didn't realize until it was too late that she needed someone to see her. What happened to her? She left, went back to Japan, married someone else, and I spent 10 years telling myself I did the right thing by letting her go. He looked at Ivy directly. I was wrong. I should have fought for her, should have seen what was happening before it was too late. Why are you telling me this? Because I see you, Ivy Carter-Lee, and I think you need someone to see you before you disappear completely. Before Ivy could respond, Jin Sang's voice cut through the garden like a whip. Uncle, my wife needs to rest. She's not feeling well. Dae-ho stood slowly, leaning on his cane. Jin Sang appeared on the path, face carefully neutral but eyes glacial. Of course, Dae-ho said. Take care of yourself, Ivy. Jin Sang gripped her elbow the moment they were out of earshot, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. What the hell were you doing? Talking. I was upset. You don't talk to my uncle. You don't talk to anyone without my permission. Do you understand? He steered her toward the car with barely controlled fury. He's dangerous, Ivy. He's not the kind man playing gardener. He's killed people, destroyed families, and you're sitting there crying on his shoulder like some pathetic... I wasn't... Shut up. Jin Sang opened the car door, practically shoved her inside. When we get home, you're taking your medication and going to bed, and tomorrow we're increasing your dosage. Clearly, you're more unstable than I thought. The ride home was silent. Jin Sang's jaw worked like he was chewing glass. And Ivy sat in the passenger seat, feeling the fog creeping in from the pill she'd taken that morning, wondering why Daeho's words had felt like the first honest thing anyone had said to her in years. I see you. When was the last time anyone had really seen her? Over the next month, Ivy's life became a cycle of pills and fog, and Jin Sang's cutting observations. Each morning, the assistant brought the medication. Each morning, Ivy swallowed it without question, because her husband said she needed it, and what did she know? She was unstable, difficult, broken. You're eating again? Jin Sang asked one morning, watching her pick at toast. I'm hungry. You're always hungry. That's the problem. He plucked the toast from her hand, dropped it in the trash. You lost a baby 3 years ago, Ivy. Most women use that as motivation to take care of themselves. You've used it as an excuse to give up. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Jin Sang leaned in close, voice dropping to that particular register that made her feel 6 inches tall. I married you because you got pregnant. I stayed with you through the miscarriage because it was the right thing to do. And this is how you repay me? By becoming someone I can barely stand to look at? Ivy's eyes stung. I'm trying. Try harder. Or I swear to God, Ivy, I'll find someone who actually wants to be my wife. He grabbed his briefcase, headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and Mother's coming for lunch tomorrow. Try to look presentable, maybe wear something with sleeves so she doesn't have to see your arms. He left. Ivy stood in a kitchen that cost more than her parents' house, surrounded by food she was too ashamed to eat, and felt herself fragmenting. She didn't know the pills were destroying her, didn't know her husband was systematically erasing her personality, her metabolism, her sense of self. Didn't know that the weight gain, the exhaustion, the way her thoughts moved like sludge, none of it was her fault. She just thought she was broken. Comment below if you've ever felt invisible in your own life. And stick around because Ivy's about to wake up. Jin Sang's mother arrived for lunch with the energy of a general inspecting troops destined to disappoint her. She walked through the penthouse making small noises of disapproval. At the pillows, at the art, at Ivy's choice of tea service. Your Korean is still so poor, she said in slow, deliberate Korean, the way one might speak to a particularly dim child. 3 years, and you sound like a tourist. I'm trying to improve, Ivy started. Trying isn't achieving. Jin Sang's mother settled onto the couch, arranged her handbook with precise movements. Jin Sang tells me you're still not well, still taking medication. Yes, for my thyroid. The sound was loaded with skepticism. You know, before you, Jin Sang was engaged to Park Min-ji. Beautiful girl. Accomplished. From a good family. They would have had beautiful children by now. Ivy's chest tightened. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. Why would he tell you? You were just a mistake he had to marry. Jin Sang's mother sipped her tea with delicate precision. The pregnancy was unfortunate. The miscarriage was probably a blessing. Can you imagine bringing a child into this situation? Mother, Jin Sang appeared from his study, voice warning. I'm simply being honest. The girl needs to understand her position. She turned back to Ivy. You trapped my son with a pregnancy. The least you could do is maintain some dignity, some beauty, some effort, but instead, you sit here growing larger by the day, taking pills for ailments that are probably psychosomatic, being a burden. That's enough, Jin Sang said, but his tone was mild, almost amused. His mother stood, smoothing her handbook. I'll leave you two alone. Jin Sang, we have dinner next week with the Parks. Don't bring her. It would be embarrassing. After she left, Ivy sat frozen on the couch, humiliation burning through her veins. "She's harsh," Jin-sang said, not looking up from his phone. "But she's not wrong. You really have given up, haven't you? I lost our baby 3 years ago, Ivy. 3 years. At some point you have to move on." "I have." He pocketed his phone. "I'm going out. Don't wait up." He left, smelling like cologne Ivy hadn't bought him. Left her alone in a penthouse that felt like a beautiful cage. Left her wondering if his mother was right, if she was just a mistake he was still paying for. The pill bottle sat on the bathroom counter. Take 1 daily for thyroid regulation. Ivy had been taking them religiously for over 2 years now. Jin-sang said they'd help her lose weight, help her think clearly, help her be a better wife. But she was heavier than ever, foggier than ever, more miserable than ever. Ivy picked up the bottle, stared at it, and for the first time in months a thought cut through the haze with crystal clarity. What if I stopped? She shook her head. No. Jin-sang wouldn't lie to her. He was harsh, yes, critical, but he was trying to help her, wasn't he? She took the pill, swallowed it with water, and felt the familiar fog roll in 20 minutes later, drowning that dangerous clarity before it could take root. 2 weeks later, Ivy attended another family dinner. This time she made sure to eat almost nothing, wore a hanbok 2 sizes too big to hide her body, stayed silent unless directly addressed. Jin-sang still found fault. "You're slouching. Sit up straight." She straightened. "And for God's sake, smile. You look like you're at a funeral." She smiled. "Not like that. You look deranged. Just..." "Never mind. Just try to blend in." Ivy blended. She became wallpaper. She became furniture. She became so good at disappearing that when she excused herself to the garden again, no one noticed she was gone. Except Dae-ho. He found her in the same pavilion, staring at the koi pond like it held answers. "You're getting better at vanishing," he observed, settling onto the bench across from her. "Last time I saw you, you were still fighting it." "Fighting what?" "Whatever's killing you." Dae-ho's eyes were dark, serious. "You look worse than you did a month ago." Ivy pulled her sleeves down self-consciously. "I just need to exercise more. Eat less. Jin-sang says..." "What does Jin-sang say?" The gentleness in his voice almost undid her. "That I've let myself go, that I'm a disappointment, that he married me out of obligation and I can't even manage to be grateful properly." Dae-ho was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful, controlled. "Do you trust your husband, Ivy?" Yes. I mean, he's harsh sometimes, but he's trying to help me." "Is he?" Dae-ho leaned forward. "I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to really think about the answer. When did you start taking medication?" "After the miscarriage. My hormones were imbalanced. Jin-sang said the thyroid medication would help regulate everything." "Did a doctor prescribe it?" Ivy frowned. "Jin-sang handled it. He said it was easier than me going to appointments when I was so depressed." "Ivy." Dae-ho's voice cut through her explanation. "Has an actual doctor, not Jin-sang, not his assistant, but a real medical professional, ever examined you and diagnosed you with a thyroid condition?" The question hung in the air like smoke. I don't think so, but Jin-sang wouldn't lie about..." "Wouldn't he?" Dae-ho pulled out his phone, typed something, showed her the screen. "Read this." It was a medical article about benzodiazepines. Side effects, weight gain, cognitive impairment, emotional blunting, dependency. "I don't understand," Ivy said, but her hands were starting to shake. "I think you do." Dae-ho pocketed his phone. "I think you're starting to, and I think that terrifies you. Jin-sang wouldn't drug me. That's insane. Why would he?" "To keep you manageable, to keep you quiet, to keep you exactly where he wants you while he does whatever he wants." Dae-ho's jaw tightened. "I've been watching you for 2 months now, Ivy. Every family dinner you're slower, quieter, more apologetic for existing. That's not grief. That's chemical control, and that's when I started making research." Ivy stood abruptly, the world tilting. "You're wrong." You're wrong, and I need to go. Ivy. But she was already running. Back to the house. Back to Jin Sang. Back to the safety of believing she was just broken instead of being systematically destroyed. Jin Sang was waiting by the car, face tight with barely controlled fury. What did I tell you about talking to my uncle? He was being kind. He's trying to manipulate you. He's always been jealous of me, and now he's using you to get to me. Jin Sang gripped her arm, guided her forcefully toward the car. When we get home, you're taking your medication and staying away from family events for a while. Clearly they're too stressful for you. And Ivy, still foggy from that morning's pill, still desperately wanting to believe her husband loved her, said, "Okay." But that night, alone in the bathroom while Jin Sang worked late, Ivy stared at the pill bottle for a long time. Has a real medical professional ever examined you? She thought about the assistant who brought the pills, the generic bottle with no pharmacy label. The way Jin Sang always insisted she take them exactly on time, always watched to make sure she swallowed. With shaking hands, Ivy opened her laptop and searched. Benzodiazepine side effects, long-term use. The list read like her life for the past 2 years. Weight gain, memory problems, emotional numbness, difficulty concentrating, increased anxiety, dependency. This is not medicine, this is control. Ivy stared at the pill bottle. Then, moving quickly before she could second-guess herself, she opened it, shook out a pill, and took a photo of it. Then she put the bottle back exactly where Jin Sang left it. Tomorrow morning, she'd take it to a pharmacy. A real pharmacy, in Itaewon, where people spoke English and wouldn't report back to the Lee family. Tomorrow morning, she'd find out the truth. Tonight, she took the pill like always, felt the fog roll in like always, and told herself she was being paranoid. But deep down, in a place the drugs couldn't quite reach, Ivy knew. If Dae-ho was right, her entire life was a lie. And if he was right, Jin Sang wasn't trying to help her recover. He was trying to erase her. Drop a like if you're as furious as I am right now. And subscribe because you need to see what happens when Ivy finally fights back. The pharmacy in Itaewon was wedged between a halal butcher and a shop selling vintage band t-shirts. Ivy had taken a taxi, told the driver to drop her 3 blocks away, then walked the rest with her hood up like she was committing a crime. Maybe she was. Distrusting your husband felt like treason. The pharmacist was a middle-aged woman with reading glasses on a chain and eyes that had seen everything. Ivy slid the pill across the counter along with the photo she'd taken. "Can you tell me what this is?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. The pharmacist picked up the pill, examined it under a light, then looked at the photo. Her expression shifted from professional to concerned. "Where did you get this?" "My husband. He said it's thyroid medication." The pharmacist's face went carefully neutral. "This is lorazepam, a benzodiazepine. It's a sedative used for anxiety disorders. Very powerful. At high doses, taken long-term." She paused, choosing words carefully. "How long have you been taking this?" The floor tilted. "Over 2 years. Every day. He said it was for my thyroid. After I had a miscarriage, my hormones were—" "This has nothing to do with hormones or thyroid function." The pharmacist's voice was gentle but firm. "This is a controlled substance. It causes dependency. The side effects include weight gain, cognitive impairment, emotional blunting, memory problems. If you stop taking it suddenly after this long, withdrawal can be dangerous. Seizures, psychosis." Ivy gripped the counter. The pharmacy spun. "Mom, are you okay?" "He's been drugging me." The words came out flat, factual. "For 2 years, my husband has been drugging me. You need to see a doctor, immediately, and you need to—" The pharmacist hesitated. "You need to get somewhere safe." Ivy made it outside before her legs gave out. She sat on the curb between a restaurant and a Noribang and finally let herself understand. Jin Sang had been poisoning her. Slowly. Systematically. For over 2 years. The weight gain, the fog, the exhaustion, the way she couldn't think clearly, couldn't fight back, couldn't do anything but apologize for existing. None of it was her fault. He'd been erasing her, one pill at a time. Ivy pulled out her phone with shaking hands and called the only person who'd tried to warn her. Dae-ho answered on the first ring. Ivy. You were right, her voice cracked. You were right about everything. Silence. Then, where are you? She told him. He said, stay there. I'm coming. 20 minutes later, a black car pulled up. Dae-ho climbed out, moving quickly despite the cane, and crouched in front of where Ivy sat on the curb. Show me, he said quietly. She handed him the pill, the photo, the pharmacist's hastily scribbled notes about withdrawal protocols. Dae-ho read everything with a face carved from stone. How long? He asked. Over 2 years. His jaw worked. You'll need medical supervision to detox. Stopping cold turkey could kill you. Do you have somewhere safe to go? The penthouse is his. My family's in New York. I don't have... Ivy's voice broke. I don't have anywhere. Dae-ho was quiet for a moment. Then, come to Jeju. My house. I have medical contacts who won't report to the family. You can detox safely. Figure out your next steps. Why would you do this for me? Because you deserve better than what my nephew's given you. He offered his hand. And because I meant what I said in the garden. I see you, Ivy, and I won't let you disappear. Ivy took his hand. Let him pull her to her feet. Let him guide her into the car. What about Jin-sang? He'll look for me. He will definitely come after me. Let him look. Dae-ho's voice was cold, dangerous. By the time he finds you, you'll be strong enough to face him. I'll make sure of it. The flight to Jeju was short, but felt eternal. Ivy kept expecting Jin-sang to call, to somehow know she was running, but her phone stayed silent. Dae-ho's house sat on a cliff overlooking the ocean, traditional Korean architecture wrapped in modern glass, private and isolated. A doctor was waiting when they arrived, a stern woman in her 60s who examined Ivy with professional efficiency. Benzodiazepine withdrawal after 2+ years of daily use, the doctor confirmed. This is going to be rough. You'll need round-the-clock monitoring for at least 2 weeks, possibly longer depending on how your body responds. What do I do? Ivy asked. First, we taper you off slowly. Going cold turkey could cause seizures or worse. Second, we manage symptoms: nausea, tremors, anxiety, insomnia. Third, we wait. The doctor's expression softened slightly. You're going to feel terrible before you feel better. But you will feel better. The first week was hell. Ivy's body, realizing it wasn't getting its daily dose of chemical fog, revolted. She shook so hard her teeth chattered. She vomited everything she tried to eat. She couldn't sleep but couldn't stay awake. Her skin felt like it was trying to crawl off her bones. And through it all, Dae-ho was there. Not hovering, not smothering, just present. He worked from home, handling family business remotely. Every few hours he'd check on her, bring her soup she couldn't eat, sit in quiet company when words were impossible. Why are you doing this? Ivy asked one night, during a rare moment of clarity between bouts of nausea. Dae-ho looked up from the book he was reading. Because someone should. That's not an answer. He set down the book. 10 years ago, I lost someone because I was too afraid to fight for her. Too damaged by violence to believe I deserved something good. I let her disappear rather than face my own inadequacy. His eyes found Ivy's. I'm not making that mistake again. I'm not her. No, you're you. And you're fighting to survive something that would have destroyed most people. That's extraordinary. He leaned forward. You asked me in Seoul if I see you. I do. I see someone brave enough to question reality when everyone told her she was crazy. Someone strong enough to leave when leaving meant losing everything. That's who you are, Ivy. Not what Jin-sang tried to make you. Ivy's throat tightened. I don't feel strong. Strength isn't feeling invincible, it's doing the terrifying thing anyway. By week 2, the physical symptoms started easing. Ivy could eat, could sleep in short bursts, could think without her thoughts scattering like startled birds. And as her mind cleared, rage started seeping in. Jin Sang had stolen 2 years from her, had convinced her she was broken when he was the one breaking her, had made her apologize for existing while he poisoned her daily. "I want to destroy him," Ivy said one morning, watching the ocean through floor-to-ceiling windows. Dae-ho, making coffee in the kitchen, paused. "Legally or literally? Is there a difference?" "In terms of consequences, yes." He brought her a cup, black the way she'd mentioned liking it once. "What do you want? Divorce? Revenge? Justice?" "All of it." Ivy sipped the coffee, felt warmth spread through her chest. "I want him to lose everything like I almost lost myself. I want him exposed. I want him ruined. Then we need evidence, not just the pills. That's assault at minimum, possibly attempted murder depending on how we frame it. But if we're going after him, we go after everything." Dae-ho settled into the chair across from her. Financial records, communications, anything that proves he's not just a bad husband but a liability to the family because he has actually done more than before. "You think there's more?" "Men who drug their wives don't usually limit their crimes to one area." Dae-ho's smile was sharp. "Let's find out what else Jin Sang has been hiding." Over the next month, Ivy healed. Her body slowly remembered what it felt like to function without chemicals dulling everything. She lost some of the weight, not all, and she realized she didn't care about the rest. She started sleeping through the night, started laughing at Dae-ho's dry observations about family politics, started feeling alive. And somewhere in the healing, something else started growing. Dae-ho was nothing like Jin Sang. Where her husband had been critical, Dae-ho was accepting. Where Jin Sang had demanded perfection, Dae-ho celebrated her mess. Where Jin Sang had tried to shrink her, Dae-ho gave her space to expand. He taught her the family business, shipping routes, corporate structures, the delicate dance of alliances. Turned out, once her brain wasn't swimming in sedatives, Ivy was sharp. She absorbed information like a sponge, asked questions that made Dae-ho pause and reconsider his own assumptions. "You're good at this," he said one afternoon, reviewing shipping manifests together. "I used to manage an art gallery in Manhattan," Ivy replied. "High-end sales, wealthy clients, logistics. This isn't that different. You should be running operations, not hiding from them. Jin Sang never let me near the business." "Jin Sang's an idiot." Dae-ho's voice was flat, certain. "You're wasted on him." Their eyes met, held. Something electric passed between them. Ivy looked away first. "I'm still married to your nephew." "For now." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. That night, Ivy couldn't sleep. She wandered to the deck overlooking the ocean, wrapped in a blanket against Jeju's cool air, and found Dae-ho already there. "Can't sleep either?" she asked. "Old habit. I do my best thinking at night." He glanced at her. "What's keeping you awake?" "Everything. The divorce, Jin Sang, the fact he is already trying so hard to find me. This," she gestured between them. "Whatever this is." Dae-ho was quiet for a long moment. "What do you want it to be?" "I don't know. 3 months ago I was a drugged housewife who could barely remember her own name. Now I don't even know what I am. Free. Furious. Confused. All of those sound accurate." Ivy laughed despite herself. "You're not helpful." "I'm not trying to be helpful, I'm trying to be honest." Dae-ho turned to face her fully. "You want honesty. Here it is. I'm drawn to you in ways that are completely inappropriate. You're my nephew's wife. You're recovering from abuse. You're vulnerable. I'm too old for you. There are 1,000 reasons I should keep my distance. But when I look at you, I see someone extraordinary. Someone who's been told she's worthless so many times she almost believed it. And watching you remember your own strength has been..." He paused. "The most beautiful thing I've seen in years." Ivy's breath caught. "Dae-ho, I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I'm just being honest. You asked what I want this to be. I want you to be free, to heal, to become whoever you're meant to be. And if that person wants nothing to do with me, I'll accept it. But if that person decides she wants something more, he let the sentence trail off. Ivy stepped closer. What if I don't know what I want yet? Then we wait until you do. They stood on the deck, ocean wind carrying salt and possibility, and Ivy realized something crucial. For the first time in her adult life, someone was giving her space to choose. Not demanding, not manipulating, just waiting. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For seeing me. Daeho's hand found hers in the darkness. Always. If this story is wrecking you emotionally, comment and let me know. And subscribe because we're about to get to the part where Ivy stops being the victim and becomes the hunter. 6 weeks after arriving in Jeju, Ivy was finally clear-headed enough to do something dangerous, investigate her husband. Jin Sang's laptop, which Ivy still had access to because he'd never bothered changing his passwords, was a treasure trove of self-incrimination. He'd been sloppy, arrogant, certain Ivy was too drugged to ever look. Big mistake. He's been having an affair, Ivy said, showing Daeho a string of emails, with Park Min-ji, his ex-fiancé, for at least 18 months. Daeho read silently, face darkening. They're planning to marry once he handles the Ivy situation. His words. It gets worse. Ivy pulled up financial records. He's been transferring money to offshore accounts. Small amounts, but consistently. And look at these shipping manifests. He's selling Lee family route information to Park Industries. Daeho went very still. That's corporate espionage, betrayal of family interests. If the council knew, he'd be stripped of everything. Yes. Daeho looked at Ivy. This is it. This is how we destroy him. Not just the divorce, we expose him to the family, show them he's a liability. They'll cut him loose to protect themselves. And me? You walk away free, with a settlement, with your dignity intact. Daeho's expression softened. With a future. Ivy thought about Jin Sang's cruelty, his mother's contempt. 2 years of being told she was worthless, broken, too much and never enough. 2 years of chemical fog and systematic erasure. Let's do it, she said. Let's burn him down. They spent the next 2 weeks building an airtight case. Financial records, email evidence, medical documentation of the drugging, testimony from the Itaewon pharmacist, a timeline showing Jin Sang's systematic abuse and corporate betrayal. And through it all, Ivy and Daeho grew closer. Late nights reviewing evidence became conversations about everything else. Her childhood in Brooklyn, his years in Tokyo, their shared love of terrible action movies and good coffee. They cooked together, walked the beach, sat in comfortable silence. One night, after a particularly long session of document review, Ivy looked up to find Daeho watching her with an expression that made her pulse stutter. What? She asked. You're extraordinary, he said quietly. Do you know that? The way your mind works, how you've taken something horrific and turned it into strategy. You're remarkable. Ivy's cheeks warmed. I'm just doing what needs to be done. No, you're doing what most people couldn't. You're taking power back from someone who tried to destroy you. Daeho stood, crossed to her slowly. And you're doing it with grace and intelligence and a kind of fierce beauty that makes it very difficult for me to remember all the reasons I should keep my distance. Maybe you should stop trying to remember those reasons, Ivy whispered. He cupped her face in his hands. I'm too old for you. I don't care. You're still healing. I know what I want. I'm your husband's uncle. The family will. I don't care about the family. Ivy rose on her toes, closing the distance between them. I care about this. About you. About how you make me feel seen. Daeho's thumb traced her cheekbone. If we do this, there's no going back. The family will call it a scandal. Jin Sang will use it against you. Let him try. Ivy's voice was steady, certain. I'm not afraid anymore. He kissed her then, slow and deep and reverent, like she was something precious he'd been waiting his whole life to find. And Ivy kissed him back, with all the passion that had been dulled by pills and cruelty, feeling herself come alive in ways she'd forgotten were possible. They made it to his bedroom, barely. And what happened there was nothing like the cold, perfunctory encounters with Jin Sang that had left Ivy feeling used and empty. Dae-ho touched her like he was memorizing territory he wanted to worship. He traced every curve Jin Sang had criticized. Her hips, her thighs, her soft stomach, her stretch marks Jin Sang had always criticized, with hands that trembled slightly. You're so beautiful, he murmured against her skin. Every inch of you is perfect. I'm not perfect. You are to me. He looked up, eyes dark with want and something deeper. You are everything, Ivy. Everything. And for the first time in 3 years, Ivy felt it, felt beautiful, felt desired, felt seen. Afterward, lying tangled in sheets that smelled like him, Ivy traced the scar through his eyebrow. How'd you get this? Gang war, 10 years ago. Same fight that killed my brother. Dae-ho caught her hand, pressed a kiss to her palm. I've spent a decade trying to outrun violence, trying to be someone worthy of peace. And then you appeared and I realized, peace isn't the absence of fighting. It's knowing what's worth fighting for. And what's that? This. You. Us. He pulled her closer. I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. But Ivy, I haven't felt this alive in 10 years. You make me want to be brave again. Ivy's throat tightened. You make me feel possible. Like I could be someone beyond Jin Sang's victim. Beyond the broken wife. Just me. You've always been you. I'm just the one lucky enough to see it. They stayed awake until dawn, talking and touching and planning the war they were about to wage. And somewhere in the golden light of morning, Ivy realized something crucial. She'd come to Jeju to escape Jin Sang, but she'd found herself instead. And maybe, just maybe, she'd found love. 3 days later, Dae-ho made a call to Seoul. I'm calling an emergency family council. Next week. Seoul. Mandatory attendance. And Ivy listening from across the room. Let them come. Let Jin Sang try to defend himself. Let the family see what their golden boy had been hiding. She wasn't the drugged wife anymore. She was a woman with evidence, with allies, with power. She was a woman about to take everything Jin Sang thought was his. Like this, if you're ready to see Jin Sang get what he deserves. And subscribe because the confrontation is next. The Lee family council convened in the traditional meeting room at the Gaho-dong estate, the same room where decisions had been made for 3 generations. 15 people sat on cushions around a low table. Elders, business leaders, key family members. Jin Sang sat near the head, perfectly composed in an expensive suit, looking like a man who owned the world. He hadn't seen Ivy in 3 months. Assumed she was still in Jeju, still under his uncle's protection, still manageable. He had no idea what was coming. Dae-ho took his seat at the head of the table without asking permission. One of the elders, a man in his 70s with eyes like chips of ice, nodded approval. Lee Dae-ho is the rightful head of this family, the elder said. If he's calling an emergency council, we listen. The door opened. Ivy entered. She wore a fusion outfit she'd chosen carefully, a deep red hanbok-style top over tailored black pants, her natural hair in elegant braids coiled like a crown. She looked nothing like the ghost who'd left Seoul 3 months ago. The room went silent. Jin Sang's face cycled through emotions. Shock, confusion, fury. Uncle, this is inappropriate. I have been searching for my wife all this time, and she was with you? My wife... is here to present evidence of crimes you've committed, Dae-ho interrupted. Sit down and listen. Ivy settled beside Dae-ho, pulled out a laptop, and met Jin Sang's eyes across the table. He looked genuinely confused, like he couldn't understand how his manageable wife had transformed into this. I've called you here, Dae-ho announced, because Lee Jin Sang has committed crimes against his wife and against this family. The evidence is substantial and damning. This is absurd, Jin Sang said smoothly. My wife has been unwell, mentally unstable since her miscarriage 3 years ago. I've been trying to help her, but she's latched onto these paranoid delusions. Is lorazepam a delusion? Ivy's voice cut through his performance. She set a pill bottle on the table. Is this what you call help? One of the elders, a sharp-eyed woman who ran the family's real estate holdings, picked up the bottle. What is this? A sedative. A benzodiazepine. Ivy slid documents across the table. For over 2 years, Jin Sang told me these were thyroid pills. He gave them to me daily. I trusted him. But they weren't medication, they were chemical control. She pulled up the pharmacy analysis on her laptop, projected it on the screen. Here's the pharmaceutical breakdown. Here are my medical records showing I was never diagnosed with any thyroid condition. Here's a doctor's testimony about the effects of long-term benzodiazepine abuse. Weight gain, cognitive impairment, emotional blunting, dependency. The room erupted in murmurs. Jin Sang's face had gone pale. This is taken out of context, he started. She was hysterical after the miscarriage. She needed help. I needed a husband who didn't poison me, Ivy said, voice steady. But you were too busy planning your next marriage to care. She pulled up emails, read them aloud, her voice never wavering. The cow is finally manageable. A few more months and I can annul this disaster. Minji's father has agreed to the merger once I'm free. Jin Sang's mother gasped. The elders leaned forward, faces darkening. You were planning to annul your marriage? The elderly male elder asked quietly. It's not. Jin Sang scrambled. Those emails are private. She had no right. Here's what else I found, Ivy continued, pulling up financial records. Transfers from Park Industries to Jin Sang's offshore accounts. Small amounts, regular intervals. And here, she displayed shipping manifests. Proprietary Lee family shipping routes, cargo schedules, port access codes. All sold to Park Industries over the last 18 months. The room went dead silent. You sold us out, the real estate elder said softly. For a woman and money. I was building a partnership, Jin Sang tried. You committed corporate espionage, Dae-ho said. You endangered every operation we run. You sold family secrets to a rival for personal gain. That's not partnership. That's treason. Jin Sang stood abruptly. You're all going to believe her? An American who trapped me with a pregnancy and is now manipulating my uncle? Look at them. She's clearly sleeping with him. Yes, Ivy said clearly. I am. The room went silent. I'm in a relationship with Lee Dae-ho, Ivy continued. After being drugged and gaslit for over 2 years by your son, I found someone who treated me like a human being instead of an inconvenience. You can judge me for that if you want, but it doesn't change the evidence of what Jin Sang did. She stood, walked to the center of the room, looked each elder in the eye. I came to Korea as Jin Sang's wife. I lost a baby while he took business calls in the hospital hallway. I was told I was broken, crazy, worthless. I was chemically controlled for 2 years while he had an affair and sold your family's future to the Parks. But I'm not his victim anymore. I'm a witness. And I'm asking for an annulment and permission to remain in Seoul under Dae-ho's protection. You have no right, Jin Sang's mother started. She has every right, the elderly male elder said. She was married into this family, she bears our name, and the evidence against your son is damning. He looked at Jin Sang. You drugged your wife with controlled substances for 2 years. You sold family shipping routes to a rival corporation. You endangered all of us for personal gain. Do you deny any of this? Jin Sang's jaw worked. The marriage was a mistake. I was trying to fix. By poisoning her? Daeho's voice was soft, lethal. By selling us out? You're not just a bad husband, Jin-sang. You're a traitor. The elderly woman spoke. I call for a vote, all in favor of annulling the marriage and stripping Lee Jin-sang of his corporate position pending investigation. Hands rose. 7, 9, 12, 13 out of 15. The marriage is annulled, the elderly male elder announced. Lee Jin-sang is removed from all corporate positions and will face further investigation for corporate espionage. Ivy Carter Lee is granted family protection and may remain in Seoul under Lee Dae-ho's guardianship. Jin-sang stood slowly. His face was a mask of barely controlled rage. This isn't over, he said quietly, looking at Dae-ho. You think you've won? You're signing her death warrant. The Parks won't accept this insult. She'll be dead within a month. Then the Parks will learn what happens when they threaten what's mine, Dae-ho said. Get out. Jin-sang left. His mother followed, and the room slowly emptied until only Ivy and Dae-ho remained. Ivy's hands were shaking. The adrenaline crash was hitting hard. You did it, Dae-ho said softly. You were perfect. I feel like I'm going to throw up. He pulled her into his arms, held her while she trembled. It's over. He can't hurt you anymore. He threatened me, threatened us. Let him try. Dae-ho's voice was dark, dangerous. I've been playing nice for 10 years. If Jin-sang wants war, I'll remind him why people used to fear the Lee family. 2 days later, they were having dinner at an upscale restaurant in Cheongdam-dong, a celebration of freedom, of justice, of new beginnings. Ivy was laughing at something Dae-ho said when the window shattered. The bullet missed Dae-ho's temple by 3 centimeters. Ivy felt it slice the air beside her face before she heard the crack of the rifle. 1 second laughing, the next Dae-ho was crushing her into the pavement, his security team returning fire, glass everywhere, people screaming. Stay down! Dae-ho's voice was nothing like his usual careful tone. Ivy touched her shoulder, felt wetness, looked down to see blood. The bullet had grazed her. She should have been terrified. Instead, she started laughing. Are you insane? Dae-ho hissed, pulling her behind a concrete planter. I can feel this, Ivy gasped, touching her bleeding shoulder with something close to wonder. I can feel everything. For 2 years I felt nothing, and now, you're bleeding. I'm alive. Ivy met his eyes, grinning through the chaos. The hospital was a blur. Ivy's shoulder was stitched and bandaged, painful but not serious. Dae-ho was unharmed but coldly furious. Jin-sang or the Park sent that shooter, he said. Then we destroy them both, Ivy replied. I have contacts now. Allies. The Jong family offered me a position advising on their African expansion. I have leverage. Ivy. No. She grabbed his hand. Jin-sang tried to erase me for 2 years. Then he tried to kill us. I'm done being afraid. I'm done hiding. We end this. She made calls from her hospital bed to the Jong family offering exclusive shipping routes in exchange for cutting off Park Industries' port access. To a journalist, feeding him the complete Jin-sang scandal. To business contacts, building an alliance that would strangle the Parks economically. Within 48 hours, Park Industries was reeling. Their contracts evaporated. Their reputation was in tatters. Park Min-ji's father publicly disavowed Jin-sang to protect his family. And Jin-sang, desperate and cornered, tried to run. Dae-ho's people caught him at Incheon Airport with forged documents and 2 million in cash. The family council voted unanimously to expel him from the Lee family entirely. Last Ivy heard, he was living in Singapore, broke and alone. 6 months later, Ivy stood in her new office overlooking Seoul, head of Lee Family International Operations, wearing a power suit and her natural hair in braids, pregnant with Dae-ho's son. She ran her hand over her belly, feeling the baby kick, and smiled. Dae-ho appeared in the doorway. Ready to go home? Almost. Ivy turned to face him. I was just thinking about how far I've come. 3 months ago, I was invisible. Now I'm running a multi-million-dollar operation carrying your baby, and people actually respect me. You were always worthy of respect. You just finally have people who see it. Daeho crossed to her, rested his hand over hers on her belly. How's our son? Active, stubborn, determined to be noticed. Like his mother, Ivy laughed. I was thinking about names. And? Something strong, something that means seen or visible or powerful. Hyunwoo, Daeho suggested. It means wise and shining. He'll be both. Ivy leaned into him, feeling safe and seen and powerful. I came to Korea as someone's mistake. I almost disappeared entirely. But I fought back. And now I'm someone's partner, someone's equal, someone's queen. Our queen, Daeho corrected, kissing her temple. Always. And standing there, pregnant with a son who would never be told he was worthless, running an empire in a country that had tried to erase her, Ivy finally understood. Being seen wasn't about changing yourself to fit someone else's expectations. It was about refusing to disappear until the right people finally opened their eyes. The rest was just making them regret they ever looked away. If this story hit you, drop a comment telling me what moment got you most. Like this video. Subscribe for more stories about people who refuse to stay broken. And remember, the people who try to make you invisible are usually terrified of how bright you'd shine if you stopped dimming your light. Now go shine. You've earned it.